here. Yay. Okay, so Angie, welcome to the group and welcome to this conversation. As you know, I invited you because of the conversation we had a little while back when you invited everybody to this group call about how you were finding weight loss. And that's how we started this, but we've also had a bit of a conversation about your experiences of menopause and midlife as well. And I think that's really valuable to the group. First of all, do you want to introduce yourself, who you are and what you do in the world?
Oh, well, where do I start on that one? I'd really like to start by acknowledging you first, though, Jane, and thank you for inviting me into the conversation because it's so needed. And what you're doing is filling a space in the world that I needed as well, because when I did become to a point where I came to that sort of age, there were so many surprises and things that I wasn't expecting. So to be in this conversation, I just feel that's hugely valuable. So I want to acknowledge you for
Thank you.
that fills that gap. And so, yeah, I met Jane on a Creative Recharge with the amazing Nick Bottini and Bloom to Wild earlier this year. Was it only this year? I feel like I've known you forever,
I
Jane.
know, but yes, it was only June this year. Yeah, incredible, isn't it?
So much longer. And so, yeah, we were in a group of creators in at Fair Oak Farm, and I just realised straight away, Jane, how incredible you are and what you're creating in the world. The connection was there instantly, and I know that was true for so many of us that were there. So for me, I'm part of the coaching world. For those that know it, very much part of the Steve Hardison being movement world. I've helped to run a couple of the events now with incredible speakers and been very honoured to be a part of that. And yeah, just met some incredible people on my journey over the last couple of years. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to own that in North Wales. I've got 4 businesses currently. And yeah, I just love to see women in particular stepping into the roles and just playing full out in the way that we can and how much we can create into the world. So waffled on a little bit there, but that's me.
And can I acknowledge you for the incredible being that you are? Because I think you undersold yourself a little bit there in terms of you're an entrepreneur with 4 businesses. You're incredible in what you do and what you create and how you show up in the world. And also, you talked about those events that you've created. Those have had fabulous impact on so many people and continue to do so. So, it's a real pleasure to have you in the group and also to see how the work that you do in helping people with their wealth consciousness is just part of what you do has really impacted your thinking around this weight loss journey as well.
Yeah, I'm going to say that's really true because I would have come at it a completely different way. And part of the whole conversation that I've been in for the last couple of years has led me to a place where I can go into this with complete self-forgiveness instead of beating myself up about what more I should be able to be doing. And, I put on, I was a fitness instructor. So I put on, from the start of COVID, I would say I put on about 5 stone. So I could really go into a place where I was really hard on myself. And my whole journey has very much shown me that I don't need to do that. So I feel quite privileged to be in a position where I can see that very clearly, because I know without the conversation, I wouldn't be there.
Can I just pick up on that? Because that's really important. So many of us, when we start to gain weight, when we hit midlife, get really angry with ourselves. And our whole approach then is I should be, I must be, I ought to. And we go into this deficit mindset. And, there's one thing that I know, and I've talked about a lot right from the start, is our mindset affects our outcomes. And so I love what you're pointing to here, that you knew from the work that you'd been doing on self and being, that this whole idea of a deficit mindset was not where you needed to be. And that's a powerful statement in terms of, you know, as a fitness instructor, you could have had all of these stories about yourself that could have really played in here. And the fact that you haven't is an incredible thing. So thank you.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, thank you. And that does feel like, it does feel quite powerful, because it feels like I've really given myself permission to go from a place of I should be a size 10 or 12 still, to actually, if it was true that I should be, then I would be.
Yeah.
And the fact that I am a size 16 to 18 now instead, that's the reality. That's what should be, because that's what is.
Yeah. It's that okayness, isn't it? It's that acceptance, and it's that knowing that that's okay, and yet also knowing that each step is also okay. So talk to me first of all, when you set up that group a little while ago, you said that you'd tried all of the usual things that had worked before when you started this weight loss journey of yours. What kind of things had you tried that you struggled with and were frustrated with because they weren't working?
Yeah, it's such a great question, because I knew how to lose weight. I knew how to train. I knew how to eat. I understood nutrition. And yet the things I knew, suddenly they began to fail. And although I've just spoken into size 16 to 18, it was truer that 3 to 4 months ago I was a 20 to a 22. So I've lost 18 pounds. And I've kept it off, which has been significant. However, what I was doing and what I knew, it all went out the window, because it didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a real...
Recording in progress.
I would say that...
Naomi, could you turn the sound on?
Yeah, it's got a move that one. Right. Still no picture. I was trying to.
You're trying to get a picture. That's okay.
No, I can't. I've done it on my iPad now, but still no picture. Oh well, I tried. Sorry.
No worries.
Sorry to disrupt.
Sorry, Angie, you were saying.
You know what? I think that's actually created a really good interruption, because what it's allowed me to do is to clear a bit of the brain fog, and to be able to say that what I hadn't realized before is how cortisol begins to play a part around menopause. I would love to hear you explain more about that, Jane, because you explained that to me so well when I first brought it up.
So thank you for that. So one of the things that I found out very early on in my exploration of menopause is the fact that our adrenal glands take over some of the estrogen and progesterone creation in our bodies. And so that's absolutely fine, as long as we're not using them for cortisol and adrenaline, because of course, when we're doing that, they can't do the estrogen and progesterone. And the fact that we lay down around our bodies also is a way, so that adipose fat that we lay down is also a way of our body creating more estrogen. So your body is doing things to try and create estrogen. And this is one of the reasons why things like going into workout overload isn't good for you. Because workout overload creates cortisol, which means your adrenal glands are working and they're not producing estrogen and progesterone. And so your body needs to find other ways, or tries to find other ways. So it goes, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll lay down fat around the middle. And so two of the biggest things that we can do for ourselves in menopause Well, one of the biggest things is to look at very carefully at our stress. And I remember my GP telling me this quite a lot. She kept saying, you need to reduce your stress. And I kept looking at her and going, yeah, how the hell am I going to do that? I'm a head teacher. Don't be stupid, and not listening and not believing it was possible. But it is, and it is, and it's essential, because if your body is producing cortisol, you are going to lay down more adipose fat, and you are not going to have the estrogen. So your other symptoms in menopause are going to be greater. And your brain isn't going to be able to function, because during menopause, perimenopause, your brain is adapting to different chemical balances. So it's like a second teenager, because the chemical balance in your brain is different. And it's having to get used to that. And it will do. It's designed to do so. It's your brain, your body is designed to go through perimenopause. It's not like it's not designed to. It knows what it's doing. We tend to change it by going, no, you have to carry on being my younger self, and you have to react the same. So when we go into calorie deficit, we create extra cortisol. When we go into exercise overload, we create extra cortisol. So actually these things that we thought we're doing to create a weight loss can do the exact opposite. So we have to be really mindful of that.
Yeah, and it was exactly that. I began to exercise and I began to eat in the way that I ate when I trained, which was to cut out a lot of foods, to eat mostly foods that would put me into ketosis. And it had no effect. I just still kept
stress on your body.
Stress on my body, because it wasn't the stress that some people experience of external stresses and my lifestyle, because I'd done a lot of work there. And I'm quite good. And don't get me wrong, there are moments when I still get all the thinking. I'm just better at remembering. Oh, it's just thought.
Yeah.
It didn't change the fact I was quite capable of physically stressing my body.
No, exactly. And stress is, I would say, the biggest enemy of perimenopause. Continuous stress. That, periods of stress are absolutely fine, but our body isn't designed for continuous stress, like moment to moment to moment to moment stress. It's designed for bursts and easing, bursts and easing. And when we do that, we don't allow the adrenal glands to do their job of balancing out some of our estrogen and progesterone to help our body cope, because they don't just make us fertile. Those hormones do other things for us. Men have little bits of this as well, just as we have testosterone. They have some uses. And one of the reasons middle-aged men put on middle-age spread is they're gaining estrogen as well. So it's doing the same thing for them. It's the adipose fat. So this wasn't working for you. You'd gone into ketosis, you were doing exercise. And interestingly, can I add in here that listening to some research that Zoe have done and other researchers have been backed up, is this idea that actually the more we exercise doesn't change how many calories we use, unless we do silly things like me and swim the whole length of Windermere. It's only when we do that kind of exercise that we change our calorie usage in a day. If you have an exercise watch and you look at your exercise watch, if you look day to day, the days you've done a lot of exercise and the days you haven't, you'll probably see that your calorie usage is roughly the same, because your body compensates. If you do a lot of exercise in the morning, then you use less calories the rest of the day. And they found this research out when they went to observe a tribe. They observed a tribe of people somewhere where they were very active all day long, everywhere. Yeah, they were constantly on their feet, and they compared them to a group of office workers that were less active. And they looked at how many calories they consumed in the day by measuring, I think it was blood, constantly throughout the day. And I can't remember exactly how. And they thought they'd made a mistake somewhere in the way that results had been calibrated, because the tribe and the office workers were using exactly the same number of calories.
It's mad.
So everything we've been told about to lose weight, exercise more, falls flat at this point. Never mind the fact that when we come into menopause, just going into the stress our bodies with too much exercise and too little food is going to add to the weight gain, as opposed to manage the weight gain. It's kind of counterintuitive, but it doesn't change our calorie usage. So because the body's this amazing thing, and it goes, oh, I've used all of those calories, I need to be a bit more careful for the rest of the day. Or, you know, if you do your exercise at the end of the day, it just goes, well, I can't let all of the calories go because I've used so many already. So it's really clever that way.
And yet there was something that began to work, and I don't know the science behind it. But what began to work was boosting my nutrition.
And this is incredible, because the other bit of advice I would say to people in menopause is the two things that matter are what you eat and how stressed you are.
So instead of lowering my calories, what I did was I focused on very nutrient-rich foods. So I cut out everything processed. And I cut out foods that were very calorie dense and focused on highly nutritional foods. And then I began to see the weight come off. And I swapped out the exercise for a small amount of weight training and resistance work. And they were the two things combined that moved the needle when nothing in it. And I'm a little bit of a scientist within nutrition and exercise too. So it was just a case of like, that's not working. What else can I try? What else can I try? And that was the point where I seemed to actually hit on something. So I'd love to hear the science behind that, Jane.
I think that's incredible, isn't it? And I think, you know, when you talk about the weight training, I talk a lot about the fact that we need to do resistance training in perimenopause and menopause. And that's because as we age, we go into sarcopenia, which is this idea where we're basically losing muscle mass and bone mass at a greater rate than we're growing new mass. And it tends to convert into flab. That tends to be what it does. And so the way it's that age-old adage of use it not to lose it. So we have to use the muscles. It's really important. But when I talk about resistance training, it can be digging up your garden. I don't mean go and buy a whole load of heavy weights and you have to do that, but you can. And it's about the fact that we have to keep using the muscles to keep them growing. It's really important that we do that, because we will lose them. And some exercise is good for us, because obviously we need to keep using the heart as well, because the heart is a muscle, and in the same way as our arm muscles and our leg muscles and our abs will go into sarcopenia, so does our heart. So if we don't keep using them in some way, then we do lose them, and they do become less effective. And also, we're less likely to be able to balance. We're more likely to fall, and a whole range of other things. So by using them, they gain. And therefore, there's this thing around when we're using our muscles, when we're not allowing that process of sarcopenia to take place in the same way, and muscle isn't converting to fat in the same way. So that in itself is part of that process. But there's something amazing about diet. Right from the start, I talked about eating a Mediterranean style diet, but eating all colors of the rainbow, and thinking of a very simple plate, which is, if you take a plate, a normal sort of circular plate, a quarter of that plate should be protein. A quarter of that plate can be carbohydrate, but none of this should be processed. You're absolutely right. There's a thing about ultra processed foods, which we can come to. And then half of that plate should be vegetables, colorful stuff. You know, your complex carbohydrates. Those are, and some of those also, the thing about these is one of the things we can do is we can eat phytoestrogens. So when we eat colourful, we eat things like, if we eat things like broccoli and you know, green veg, and there's a whole range of vegetables and seeds that contain phytoestrogens. So we're boosting our estrogens by eating them. Because phytoestrogen just means plant estrogen. That's all it means. So we're eating them. And that's also helpful, because one of the things that research found was that where you have a culture of eating this kind of food, there is and you have a culture of less stress, there is less issues with weight gain. So, you know, and especially in active societies. And then if you add in the kind of Eastern culture of venerating women in perimenopause, then you take away all the pressures really of menopause almost completely. Because there's no longer the idea that, oh gosh, I'm now in perimenopause, I'm in the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of the end. This is why this group that I run is called Embracing Your Second Spring. It's an Eastern culture, where when a woman goes through menopause, they have a big party and they call it their second spring. And it is, you're springing into a new life, a new you, and new opportunities. And so that's why the group is that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I completely hear you. And there's so many reasons to go out and exercise and walk, and losing weight is not one of them.
No, exactly. You know, and when we talk about stress, well, get out in nature, because guess what? Being in woodland and being in nature and stress don't match. You kind of lose your stress when you lose yourself in those places, you know? So yeah. So there's a bit more to your weight loss journey though, isn't there? Because you applied your money mindset stuff to your weight loss approach as well. And you talked about tracking what you were eating, knowing what was going in.
Yeah, so from that aspect, and I don't track so much anymore. However, it helped me get into the initial habits.
And I think that's the key, isn't it? It's the habits at the start. Yeah.
Yeah, because once I was tracking, I didn't want to write in my food diary that I'd stuff in place with a bag of crisps. So actually, if I've got to write it down and record it, no, I don't got to put that in there. So I'll make a better choice. There was a lot of that for me.
Yeah. It's mind hacks, isn't it?
Yeah. And where it was that, oh yeah, I'm really busy, I'm running around the hotel, I'll grab a bag of crisps on the way through, it become a conscious decision instead of just something that I was doing completely thoughtlessly.
Yeah.
And it was a big game changer, actually becoming really conscious about my choices.
Because I think that's one of the things, isn't it? We can so often lie to ourselves. You know, when we're not making conscious choices about what we eat, we can forget what we've eaten.
100%.
And that's what I mean by lie to ourselves. I don't mean we're deliberately setting out and going, I haven't eaten that. We're genuinely forgetting how much of it we've eaten. And you know, and that's a big thing. In the beginning, where was your head in terms of what was happening? What was going on for you in your head?
I was very confused about why is it that all the things that have worked for me, why don't they work anymore? Because I'd always felt so strongly, oh, come on, it's not rocket science. If you want to lose weight, you need to burn more calories than you're eating. Come on, anyone can work that out. And all of a sudden, it's not that anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it was you, actually, Jane. And if it wasn't you that educated me on this, I'm sure you know it already. that we can get into this real cycle of, yeah, we can burn calories in the day. And then as soon as we stop exercising, we stop burning, our body looks for a way to bring all that stored fat back in because it thinks it needs it.
Mm-hmm.
And it will completely reverse any of the work that we've done in the day.
There's so much goes on, isn't there? I mean, that's what I said about that whole idea of when we exercise more, we don't use any more or less calories. The body just adapts as well. Also, when we do that whole thing around exercising, there's a piece that happens in our brains around, well, I've done that now, so I can eat a little bit more. And each of those little bits, I'll have another spoon of such and such, you know, each of those little bits adds up, don't they? And so I think there's this bit in what you were saying around right at the start, tracking what you were doing, knowing what you were eating and being really honest about what you were eating and consciously choosing to eat certain foods.
Yeah, but as well as that, from a psychology point of view, something that helped me massively that I hadn't done before was not having the mindset that I couldn't, there was things that I just couldn't have.
Yes.
So for example, it would be one of my grandchildren's birthdays and there'd be this birthday cake and it's becomes a conscious decision. So instead of, no, I can't have that, absolutely no go, that's bad. Well, yeah, I will choose to have some and I will choose to be consciously aware of how much I have.
And that's
so, happy with a smaller amount rather than, you know, the entire cake.
There's so much psychology in this process. And I think that's part of the answer. You know, we're kind of told that, you know, the various weight loss companies and various other things, you know, they tell us some foods are good and some foods are bad. And that whole labeling of good foods, bad foods creates this kind of craving for foods.
Yeah. And you tell me I can't do something and
oh yeah, me too. Yeah. You can't do that. Well, I'm bloody going to do it anyway, you know? But so I think I think this idea that actually it's about being conscious of what we're eating, it's consciously eating as opposed to just eating. And it's being mindful that when we choose to eat a certain food, we're choosing it, but we're not choosing it in excess. And we're knowledgeable about that choice. And no food is a bad food. And then I want to come to this thing you said earlier about processed foods and be specific about ultra processed foods. Because those foods are engineered to be both energy dense and addictive. And I do mean engineered because they employ large teams of people to engineer the food right down to the texture, the sound of opening the container. So, for example, there's science in the sound of opening a bag of crisps or a packet of biscuits. There's science in the crunch you get from the biscuit or from the crisp that's about them being addictive. So they're engineered to be addictive. And that can be the challenge. So it's so when we're looking at foods, cooking from fresh is a good idea, but that's not always possible. You know, I mean, Naomi, I know you're an amazing cook and you cook some fabulous things, and I'm coming round to your house constantly to eat because you post what you're cooking and I'm going, I'm coming. It's amazing stuff. But you know, that's not always where we sit, is it? That and not all of us, I would include me in this, are great cooks. But there are things that we can do because eating fresh, we know that it's not ultra processed. So creating from scratch is our own. But there are ways that we can help ourselves with this in terms of freezers. Freezers are really good because you can make a lot and put it in the freezer. You know, so if time is an issue, there are ways of creating time. In the same way as I would always say to people who say, I don't have time for exercise. Well, what do you do when you're brushing your teeth? What do you do when you're waiting for the kettle to boil? You know, when you're brushing your teeth, squat while you're brushing your teeth, you know, stand on one leg, whatever it is. There is always time. March on the spot while you're waiting for the kettle to boil. It's still time. Yeah, you're waiting for the kettle to boil, so do something. And so therefore time does exist. And so one of the other things that I think we can get ourselves into this pickle of, I don't have time to eat well. I don't have time to make the right choices. You're a busy businesswoman, you know, you're running a hotel and all sorts of other things. Time is clearly something that is very precious at your end as well. So how did that come for you?
Oh, it's such a great question, and that I think it was Steve Hardison that first come up with time bending.
I love that concept.
And it's exactly what you're saying. So while I'm walking to the car from the supermarket, I can pick my phone up and I can call someone and see how they're doing.
Yeah.
While I'm waiting for, I might have given one of my kids a lift somewhere, and that because they've got an appointment, while they're in there, what can I get done? Where have I got opportunities where there's an and instead of an or?
Yeah. I love and. And is such a great word.
One thing that I do with my time bending is when I've got books that I want to read, and I'm a prolific reader, and it doesn't stop me buying books on Audible, because when I travel and I drive, and I've got to do that quite a lot living in North Wales because nothing's on your doorstep.
Yes, it's not much better, is it, Naomi? Different landscape, but nothing's on your doorstep. You know, so, yeah.
Yeah, there's always opportunities, and everybody's opportunities are different to mine, and that's what I began to see is, as you were speaking into, how do we get time to do the exercise? It's exactly that. It's the same conversation. It's
and
I do while the kettle boils.
And if something is important, you know, because we can all say these things about, oh yeah, you know, it'd be nice to lose weight, it would be nice to exercise, but there's something about creating something as important, creating something as, this is who I am. I am a person who eats healthily. I am a person who exercises. There's something in that, isn't there, as well, that when you create yourself as as that is important, that's who you are. Those opportunities show themselves so much more readily, because we're going in with that mindset that says, you know, I am doing this, rather than, wouldn't it be nice to? It's so hard for me to lose weight. I can't lose weight. If we go in with that, I can't lose weight. Ever since I've hit midlife, it's never going to fall off. I'm never going to lose weight. Guess what? We don't. We create what we think. You know, I mean, that's said so much in the coaching world. You know, we are what we think. That's our limitation. So if we think we can't do something, guess what? We can't. If we create something as nice to have, it's not now. So what I'm hearing in what you did was, this is now. I am eating healthily.
Yeah, and you know something I really can't skip over while we're saying this is, and Steve Chandler's onto something here. The guy's just written a book called The Peri Systems.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really take on board that my coach says is, we've all got systems, and the results we are getting are perfect for the systems that we've got in place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's so true for the amount of exercise that we're doing as well. So if I've got a system that means I haven't got time to exercise, I'm going to get results of not exercising. And that's always my truth. If I'm not doing something, it's because I either have a system that's preventing me from doing it, or I don't have a system at all. It's one of those two every single time.
Yeah. And I think this is so powerful because it makes such a difference when we recognize that it's often little tweaks. And I don't mean big shifts in our mindset around stuff, but it's often little tweaks in how we set about something that starts us realizing that there's different opportunities. And by a little tweak, it can be quite a big effect. So, you know, from going from I don't have time to exercise to I'm going to take an opportunity to exercise, we start exercising. You know, it's not a very big shift, is it? I don't have time to exercise. I will do 10 squats while I brush my teeth. No, that's 10 squats more than you were doing. You know, and it's not about going, that's not enough. It's about, and I think this is where the atomic habits comes in as well, doesn't it? That idea of Jamie, what's his surname? Can't remember, who wrote Atomic Habits. He talks about habit stacking. So this is also that thing around adding things to what you're doing. Find times when you're doing something and add it to it. But I think the biggest thing I took away from your conversation a while back when we had that WhatsApp conversation, that group conversation from WhatsApp, was it's about the habit. It's about the being the person who eats healthily. It's about seeing that the system is I put healthy food in my mouth. I put nutritious food in my mouth. So the wording was you used, I put nutritious food in your mouth. And I think that's it. That's really good because healthy, not healthy tends to have poor connotations, but nutritious. I eat nutritiously. I am mindful with what I eat. I'm not going into a deficit mindset. I'm not denying myself foods. I'm being mindful in how and what I eat. And that's so powerful.
Yeah, do you know what, Jana? I don't want us to step over something you said. That I heard you say something that to me is so powerful. And that is to start with the small changes. And you said we can start with the small changes. To me, the small changes are even more powerful. And the reason they're even more powerful is because I am so much more likely to stick with a small change than something that's huge. And therefore, the small changes are the ones that can be so much more impactful on my life because they're going to have staying power.
Yeah. And this is the thing, you know, I think the Atomic Habits book talks about, you know, if you change something by 10% each day, it's 1% each day. Think about how that's magnified by the end of a year, you know, 2 years, whatever. That 1% doesn't need to be very much, you know, it could be less than that. But, and it's, yeah, James Clear, that's who I was looking for. I knew James, and then all I had was the clarities, Jamie Smart. Thank you for that. It's such a brilliant book. And I've spoken to that, to this idea of atomic habits in the group before. So some of you may have heard me talk about that before. Yeah. And small tweaks make big differences and are so much easier to keep to. I agree. Because they don't feel like big challenges. Now, there was something you said really early on that I want to speak to now, which is that you said you lost the 18 pounds and you've stayed without putting any more on. Yeah? Because
I do feel quite strongly that staying on this is going to mean that I fall further because the weight is staying off, because I'm feeling better in myself, because I've got less pain in my joints, because my heels actually touch my bum when I kneel down now, Jane.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it? Why do you think I sat on such a comfortable seat the whole time in Creative Recharge? I think, and I think this is the thing, isn't it? But also, what I really want to highlight the power in what you've done and what you've shown is so many diets. We do them, we achieve a goal. And then we go, okay, I'm at my goal now. And how many people do a diet and get heavier, do a diet, get heavier, do a diet, get heavier? This is a thing. You know, the biggest people in the country are probably the people who've done the most diets. Because there is knowledge in yo-yo dieting. Because when we diet, when we go into extreme calorie deficit, which a lot of these diets do, our metabolism changes, it adapts, it goes, oh, so I'm surviving on less calories. Oh, in that case, I'll use less calories. So then when we think, oh, I've reached my weight now, I'll just go back to healthy eating. But your body's going, oh, hang on a minute. That's the other bit. I'll come to that in a minute, Tracy, around self-sabotage. But the other thing that happens is because your body is used to using less calories, it carries on using less calories. So the calories you're putting in now are too many. So you actually start gradually putting on weight. Not big, but it goes on gradually until it's big again. And so the power that you said that you've stayed at the same weight, that you've carried on, you know, and you've not gained weight, that you've not gained weight again, is beautiful, because that's so unusual.
Do you know what? Actually, Tracy has said something that's reminded me of something that was a real game changer this time around for me, was the power and the difference in the way I speak to myself, in self-forgiveness again, of, oh, I have grabbed a packet of crisps and I've eaten them. Oh, well, I haven't ruined everything, which is where, oh, well, there I go again, messing everything up. No, it's not that. It's, oh, I had a human moment. Now I can go back to how I was.
And anyway, who doesn't want to eat the odd packet of crisps? They're lovely. They're more my thing than cake, to be honest. But yeah, you know, I mean, and Rinna's put there about I've gained and lost over 30 stone in my life, you know, and there's that story that's so true of so many people. I mean, I'm at the biggest I've been for about 10-15 years again now, but I've gone up and down in the past, and before it's gone down so easily. And like you, Angie, that's not the case. And it's not like I don't exercise. I mean, I swam 11 miles in one day 3 weeks ago. You know, it's not like I don't exercise. So it's not the exercise, but it's the way I eat. Because for me, I've noticed that I eat to get dopamine fixes. I eat when I'm tired. I eat when I'm ill. I eat when I'm stressed. I eat when I'm bored. And guess what? I don't tend to reach for healthy stuff. And this thing about being mindful, I've started being mindful in the last week. But I started doing something very simple, which is my husband does the cooking. And I've just said, let's buy a whole load of veg. So instead of, because he likes like half a plate of rice and then the rest of the food on the other half of the plate, it's like, it's too much rice for me. So, you know, move it so that I'm having some veg. I'm filling my plate with some veg instead. And that has really, really helped, you know, because it's like, it's just a small shift. I'm not going to go, I'm not eating your food because you give me too much rice. I'm just going to have less rice and have some veg. And to make it simple, I said, let's put some frozen stuff in the freezer so I can just cook it. I can just put it in the microwave and have it, you know. So that's about going to that Mediterranean plate and having more colour on the plate. You know, I started eating more fruit at breakfast. I started having fruit with my breakfast. After a while, he started having fruit with his breakfast. I mean, those who know him, he's an ultra marathon runner. He ran 34 miles at the weekend. So, you know, so it's not like he's not fit. But, you know, I mean, and he's one who can decide he's losing weight and just cut down the number of biscuits he eats, and then he loses weight, which is slightly frustrating. But, you know, we're all different. And that's the thing, we're all different.
Yeah.
But you've just given, you know, I think there's something around hope in what you're saying. And also that realization that it's not, we don't have to go into beating ourselves up. And in fact, when we don't go into beating ourselves up about food, that's when we make those changes that help.
Yeah, absolutely. And the feeling that I get through is I'm bigger than I've ever been in my life. I'm heavier than I was when I was carrying my 3 children.
Oh, me too.
Now, having lost the 18 pound, that's still true. And regardless of how much weight I put on, how much weight I lose, this body is what allows me to experience all of the incredible things that I'm experiencing right now. So to not be grateful for it somehow doesn't sit with me anymore since my thinking has shifted.
I think that's brilliant. I just want to highlight one thing that you said as well, that in eating, in changing how you eat, the pain that you experience has changed.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone else has experienced this. I was very much even struggling to walk up and down the stairs because there was so much pressure on my joints from the extra weight that I was carrying. It really hurt.
Can I just say in there as well that menopause can also add to the sensations of pain? So the two things might have been at play there. But
And
yeah,
it hasn't stopped completely. And I've noticed a difference of how much quicker I can move now.
yeah. And it doesn't, isn't that, well, when you can move quicker, you've also got more time.
That's very true. That's a very, very.
Because I've noticed this, because I've just in the 3 weeks that I've been ill, I've not been out walking, and I noticed I'm slower walking, so I had less time to walk my after I walked my dog to have my meeting with somebody. It's like, oh God, I've only got 2 minutes. Normally I have 6. But yeah, but being grateful for our bodies, I think that's, Tracy said that's such a great message. And I certainly talk into that. My body is what got me through 11 miles of Windermere. My body does so much. And, being thankful and grateful to it. But also, I think there's another part to that, which is also about taking care of it. Our bodies are there for us. It's our, we can take care of them.
Yeah, that's been part of it too. So the more I learn to be grateful for my body, the more I want to actually just treat it really well and do the best I can for it.
Yeah.
And that also alters my psychology with, I actually do want to make a conscious decision. It's not that I'm depriving myself. It's that I'm honoring my body and how I want to feel and what I want to be able to experience. And that is bigger than the deprivation I feel from wanting to grab that bag of crisps as I walk past the bar. They're in a basket, Jane. You should see them. This lovely wicker basket, and they're all lined up in their neat little rows.
Yeah, we have a whole load of them in the kitchen. They're far too easy to see as well, but I can see that. Yeah, absolutely. Something came into my mind then when you were talking about it. I mean, I know some of us have pets, and chocolate is bad for dogs. But I tell you what, my dogs love the smell of chocolate, and would they not love it? But I love my dogs. So I'm not feeding my dogs chocolate. I choose not to feed my dogs chocolate because chocolate is bad for dogs. So I'm kind of treating my dogs better than I treat my own body. If I'm making the decision that I'm not going to feed something to my dogs that will potentially cause them harm and isn't good for them, and yet I will do this, I will do that to my own body. So that's what came up actually as a thought when you were talking about the conscious choices we can make to take care of the body that does so many amazing things for us.
Yeah, and I think it's both at the same time. I think it is that, along with absolutely forgiving ourselves completely when we do grab for the.
Absolutely. And as we said, it's, for those
times
of you who like chocolate, chocolate's a nice thing. For those of I like crisps, they're a lovely thing. I love cheese. You know, yeah, and actually my favorite snack would be cheese and crisps. But they do say put protein with carbohydrate, don't they? So
You can't argue with that. That sounds like a very balanced meal, right?
I'll put a bit of rocket in there as well, then it's got some calories.
Yeah.
But I think it's about the conscious decision to take care of a body, but not deprive our bodies. I think those are really important things. Yeah. Thank you so much for what you've been talking into here today, Angie, because I think it's, there's some powerful stuff in what you've said, really powerful. And certainly from the comments there, are there any questions? Anybody got anything they want to say or speak into in this conversation?
Um, I just want to thank you both for creating this conversation and be willing to address these topics. Um, I I actually had this experience and I didn't notice it, right? So I did a thing earlier this year about becoming a vegan bodybuilder, right? There's some Irish woman that does a thing. And I was eating exactly the way that you described. So, like, for the first 6 weeks, 8 weeks, it was the vegetables, the protein, the complex carbohydrate, and nothing else, right? So I was so dedicated, no alcohol, no slip ups, no nothing. And I lost like 25 pounds. And then it shifted into the shred portion where it became calorie deficit, where it was hard workouts. It was just a lot of processed foods, lots of shakes and stuff. And my body completely broke down. So I've been in this chronic, painful state since May and have been living into just really bad back pain, really bad leg pain, and just wondering, like, what's my body trying to tell me? Like, what's happening? Because I can't quite make sense of everything, right? And there's so many answers to the question of, physical pain, right? Like, is it just on the physio level? It is emotional, is it spiritual, is it, right? Like, there's so much to look at. And but I had forgotten what I was doing, right? And it's like this conversation brought my attention back to the thing that I didn't notice, that I was unconscious about. And I was like, oh yeah, I was thriving. Like, I was digging that diet and my body knew it and I knew it, and I had no issues giving up alcohol, giving up crisps, any of it. Like, I was so in it and enjoying it. And it was only when I switched gears that things kind of went off the rails, but I wrote it all off, right? Because you don't see it. So I know exactly what I need to do, and I'm delighted that I have direction to head. So thank you for all the information and the clarity and just the enthusiasm. This was just a gift, absolute gift for me today.
That is so wonderful to hear. Can I just challenge one word that you said there? You said, I know what I need to do. I think I'm hearing this is something you want to do.
It's totally something I want to do.
And that just creates it with a different level of power than the need.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. That's brilliant. I love that. Thank you for speaking that up, because that is, again, so powerful. So thank you for that. Tracy, you said thank you for the inspiration. I'm curious, what is it that the inspiration for you has been? What's the inspiration moment for you?
It's very much this being grateful for our bodies and just treasuring them for what they are and what they've done. I mean, I, like Angie, have had 3 children, and that's a miracle. And actually, I forget that sometimes. I think, oh, it's getting old, it's getting tired. What can I do about it? And actually, I should be celebrating my body for having given me 3 wonderful children and for being healthy. I can walk the dog every day. I should be grateful for all of that. And we forget that. We're too focused on what we look like and how we're going to look. And it's really good to be reminded that actually we only get one body, so look after it, treasure it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's, yes, sorry, Angie.
I'd love to invite Tracy into that's the next level again. That instead of I should be, and I should be honoring it, I get to.
Brilliant. I get to.
I love that. Yeah, I was thinking of the I am, but I get to, I think is a different level again, isn't it? It's that this is a celebration. I think there's something about celebratory. I'm celebrating my body with I get to do this. Yeah. It's beautiful.
I get to treat it well.
Yeah. There's something beautiful in that.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you for that contribution there.
I'm going to put it in my document.
Ah, yeah, go for it. Naomi, you put, I once went on a health kick and you noticed that your aches and pains disappeared. So yeah, and that's really key. I think that what our body does talk to us. Our body talks to us, and we forget to listen sometimes. And I know this is a really big thing for me when I talk about burnout and things like that, but our body talks to us all the time. And when it's giving us signals of pain and distress, it's telling us something. And the key for us is to listen. What's the message it's trying to tell us? And then respond with what it needs. because we get to honor it. You know, we get to honor our bodies. So yeah, absolutely. I love that.
That was, it was cutting out too many things. It's hard to maintain it, but it's
Yeah.
just trying to, we know it, don't we? Just trying to do what we can to eat better and look after ourselves better. And you know, I know that I did benefit from that, because that cut out dairy, sugar, wheat,
And the
alcohol,
thing is,
everything. But I do get a lot of aches and pains and muscular problems, and they did all just go away. And then when I reintroduce things, then it comes back. So
did you reintroduce them all at once, and did you take them away all at once?
it was all at once, yeah, because it was
Okay.
like a hypnotherapy transformation kind of thing. I was talking to you about it before.
Yeah, you have. But what's one of the things I was going to say?
It was all at once. So it was just way too much. And to try and, I really love healthy food, but try and keep on top of it all and have enough of the healthy food to be constantly making all the nutritious food. I'd need to be shopping every day, and
yeah,
that's
but I would also like to add that whilst we know that for some people dairy or for some people wheat can cause inflammation, we're all different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're all different, and there are ways that you can sort of, if this is something that's important to you, there are tests out there that you can buy that will allow you to see how quickly your body reacts to something. But there are very simple ways you can also do it. For example, if you suspect, for example, that eating a lot of dairy triggers inflammation, which would lead to pain, then that's what you look at. But you don't do all or nothing.
No, I think for me, sugar is the biggest thing. And I definitely notice when I have alcohol, which obviously got a lot of sugar in it, then my body reacts more. So I think sugar and alcohol cutting out and increasing the nutrition is the main things for me to be focusing on.
And just to talk into that, as we go into perimenopause and beyond, we get less efficient at processing sugar and less efficient at processing alcohol.
Yeah, definitely.
So they are going to have much more of an impact on us.
Yeah, I'm not a big drinker at all, but if I have a couple of glasses of wine, then I will wake up in the night, which I never used to at all. I think it's the body struggling to process it more.
Yeah,
I know quite a few people that stopped drinking when they got to about my age. That their body's going to
well, not fully, but I don't drink very much now at all. I probably have my weekly ration in a year. Thank you so much, Angie. I think this has been a really powerful conversation. I've really appreciated it. And those who watch this in the replay or in the group, I'd love to know what you've taken from it, because there's so much to learn in here. And the biggest messages that I think I'm looking at here are we get to honor our bodies. We get to look after our bodies. And this idea of being mindful and not coming at things from a position of good and bad, and not coming at it from a position of chastising ourselves if we eat something that we deem as bad, not denying ourselves things, but being mindful what we're eating and when we're eating it, and really taking account of that. So thank you so much again, Angie, for your contributions tonight. It's been fabulous. And thank you to the rest of you as well for being on here, and also your contributions both in the comments and in speaking to them as well. So much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I've loved joining you for the conversation, and I can't wait to see where this group goes, because I know this is only the beginning.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay, let's stop the recording.